Good morning. The committee will come to order. The chairman may declare a recess at any point. And so we're probably going to see votes here, but then we'll come back and continue for the rest of the day. That probably won't affect the first panel, but it will affect the others. Well, I'm proud to welcome all to Members' Day here as chairman of the committee. It's a privilege to lead the committee. I'm a Marine, veteran, and on behalf of my fellow brothers and sisters in arms, thank you all. All of us owe a debt to those men and women who serve and those who continue to serve our country. And I'm proud to say that over the past few years, under my chairmanship, we have passed a number of bipartisan bills to make life a little easier for veterans and their families. This is a mission we will continue. Achieving real success for the men and women who have taken an oath of office to serve our country is not a mission that can be done alone. We must work together to address the issues that affect veterans and their families in all 50 states and territories. They deserve no less. Members' Day gives the opportunity to hear from members that represent those veterans, whether on the committee or not, about the issues affecting their districts. Every member of Congress has veterans in their district that deserve to have their voices heard as we work to improve care and services for our veterans. A veteran in Hawaii may not face some same obstacles as a veteran in Pennsylvania. And that's why I'm excited that so many of our colleagues have chosen to participate in today's hearing. Your advocacy on behalf of your veterans and their families and survivors is vitally important. We appreciate you coming in before the committee today to share your ideas. And I'm eager to hear from each of you about the ideas that you have to ensure that the veterans have the opportunity to live out the American dream that they fought to protect. Now, I now recognize Ranking Member Takano for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, buenos dias, aloha, talofa, hafade. We have such an amazing, diverse country, and so many of our diverse citizens who serve in our military. I look forward to hearing from our colleagues on Member Day about their ideas and the legislative proposals to help address the issues and concerns of veterans in their districts, as well as efforts to support and promote oversight and accountability at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and to also provide, this is very strangely written, I'm going to skip that part. And although policymaking can feel challenging at times, I hold out hope that we will come together and that we can come together on a bipartisan basis to improve the lives of veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Takano. Okay, so testifying before us on panel number one is Representative Schreier and of Washington. Though she's not here yet, Representative Titus is also expected to be in from Nevada. I did? Oh, no, I was talking about, no, I'm going down through the list. Representative Takuda from Hawaii, and Representative Vasquez from New Mexico. Representative Schreier, now you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Bost, and thank you, Ranking Member Takano, for the opportunity to testify here today. I first want to extend my gratitude to the more than 40,000 veterans that I represent in Washington's 8th Congressional District and all veterans who have sacrificed for our country. Serving our country and stepping up is an extraordinary commitment that impacts veterans and their families for their entire lives, and they've shown up for us, and we definitely need to show up for them. As we're all aware, our country continues to face a worsening veteran mental health crisis. The transition to civilian life after service can be incredibly challenging, especially for more intense service and those who have served their entire adult lives. And these challenges are even more pronounced in rural areas where there are fewer services, like the areas I represent. Specifically, for the past several years, the community in Wenatchee, Washington, has faced multiple veteran mental health crises, tragic crises, in part because of our failure to meet their mental health needs. The closest vet center that provides full mental health services is 2 hours away from Wenatchee, and The closer VA mental health services have just failed to provide sufficient staffing for more than 2 years. And I know that the VA is working hard to close this gap in care, but we need more, and we need it quickly before more tragedies occur, and I want to put that plug in. I also want to emphasize there's no one-size-fits-all solution to the veteran mental health crisis. Expanding telemental health services is a great step, and I am thrilled about that. We also have to maintain access to in-person counseling, given that there's a big population that just wants face-to-face interaction, and that's how they do best. I want to voice my support for the PFC Joseph Dwyer Peer Support Program Act, which would provide funding for peer-to-peer veteran mental health programs, which has been so successful, and the Innovative Therapy Center of Excellence Act, which would support research on alternative cutting-edge treatments at vet centers. They deserve the best. Similarly, we need to take a look upstream, just like we do with all healthcare issues, and understand and address just the roots of this crisis and what we can do before our veterans leave the military to help them set them up for success. Lastly, I've spoken here before about Cerner, the electronic health record, and what a disaster it was, its rollout, and I appreciate the efforts made to improve it. What I am hearing, however, in my district is that despite improvements, the VA providers are still finding the system with lots of errors, significant delays. Providers are seeing future patients as they are tripping over the system. And I just want to advise major caution in any further rollout of this system until all of these issues are ironed out. Thank you very much, and thank you to our veterans.
Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and go to Representative Takuda. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Aloha, Chairman Bost, Ranking Member Takano, and members of the committee. Mahalo for holding this Member Day hearing and for your continued commitment to those who have served. You know, about 89,000 veterans call Hawaii home. We're actually the 10th highest in the nation of per capita veterans. They have defended our nation with honor, and we have a profound obligation to ensure that they can thrive in post-military life and receive the care that they have earned. That responsibility drives the 2 legislative priorities I bring before you today. First, the Parity for Native Hawaiian Veterans Act, which I reintroduced this year with Senator Hirono. This bill would finally place Native Hawaiian veterans on equal footing with their American Indian and Alaska Native counterparts by allowing the VA to reimburse Native Hawaiian healthcare systems for the care that they provide. Right now, the VA reimburses IHS, tribal health programs, the urban Indian organizations, but not Native Hawaiian health systems. That inconsistency has real consequences. It means that Native Hawaiians in my community, veterans, many of them who live in very rural and remote parts of our neighbor island communities where VA access is already extremely limited, cannot use the culturally grounded providers who have served and cared for their families for generations. Native Hawaiian veterans deserve the same respect, the same access, and the same pathways to care that Alaska Native veterans have already received. And so this bill simply corrects a longstanding disparity. Our veterans have earned, quite frankly, nothing less. The second issue I want to raise with deep concern and, quite frankly, profound sadness. Dr. Robert McCormick Brown, a psychiatrist credibly accused of sexually assaulting and abusing dozens of children in Hawaii over decades, remains interned in the National Cemetery of the Pacific. He died by suicide shortly after the allegations became public, escaping any criminal accountability. The VA has confirmed that because current law only allows review of cases from 2013 forward, they lack the authority to even consider disinterment. Dr. Brown was buried in 1991. I offered an NDA amendment to address this, but sadly it was not made in order. I asked this committee to help advance legislation that would disinter Dr. Brown and give the VA the ability to address cases like this. We cannot undo the pain he inflicted, but for the victims who have come to me seeking help, we can ensure he is not honored in a place reserved for those who served with integrity, our heroes. Finally, I want to remind the committee that an estimated 94,000 veterans living in our country without citizenship remain at risk of deportation. In Hawaii, we've already witnessed the self-deportation of one Purple Heart medalist. These are men and women who wore our uniform. We owe them a fair, attainable pathway to citizenship and protection from removal, and I hope this committee will work with the committees of jurisdiction to ensure no veteran is forced to fight the government they once defended. Mahalo again for hearing our concerns, and I look forward to working with you to support our veteran communities.
Thank you. Now we want to recognize a former member of this committee, Representative Titus.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, and members of the committee for this opportunity to come back and visit the committee that I enjoyed so serving on. I think it does such important work, so thank you for that. In Nevada's 1st Congressional District, I hear from veterans all the time, men and women who served with honor who have come home and are expecting fair treatment and support, but they now face unnecessary barriers to the care and benefits that they earned. Among these are our atomic veterans and the service members who worked at the Nevada Test Site and Training Range. These are individuals whose missions were to deal with things that are very secret. Even their presence there has been classified and effectively erased. So they have suffered from the effects of exposure to toxic and radiation, but they can't seem to get any benefits for their health issues. They have carried issues without recognition, they've fought claims without documentation, and they've battled a system that too often tells them you were never there, and their records have been masked and hidden and lost and buried behind classifications. Now, the military, as you all know, pledges to leave no one behind, and when they come home, we as this committee and members of Congress should not leave them behind either, and we should give them the same commitment we do our soldiers on the field. And that's why I introduced the PRESUME Act, the acronym PRESUME. It would eliminate the unjust requirement and almost impossible task of having atomic veterans prove a specific radiation dose before they can access the VA benefits that they've earned. Veterans at the test site and other nuclear testing locations were often exposed to toxic radiation without their knowledge, and many were never told they were being exposed during the time, and today they often suffer from illnesses that they don't know what were caused by, the cancers, pulmonary issues, and other serious problems. In order to establish entitlement to what the VA calls presumptive diseases, these veterans have to prove on-site participation and radiation dose estimates from the Defense Threat Radiation Agency. Now, this is data that has been historically unreliable. Now, when the government controls the data, the veterans shouldn't bear the burden of having to prove the impossible and showing that where they were and what their dosage was at the time. The PRESUME Act would remove these bureaucratic barriers. It's been endorsed by the Disabled American Veterans, the Invisible Enemy, Veterans of Foreign Wars, National Association of Atomic Veterans, Paralyzed Veterans of America, the Veterans Advocacy Group, and the Eniwetok Atoll Atomic Cleanup Group of Veterans. There are hundreds of veterans, and we need to assist them, provide them benefits before it's too late, just as we did the Agent Orange veterans. So I believe it's time for Congress to advance this crucial piece of legislation, and in doing so, we would remove bureaucratic hurdles, ensure parity with other radiation victims like the downwinders, for example, and honor our promise to those who served in harm's way. We must never forget that they played a critical role in our country's winning the Cold War, but it was at great personal cost and often with very little public recognition. People didn't know what they were doing, even they didn't know what they were doing. So it's long past time that we honor those who served so well as during these Cold War years. So I ask that we continue building on the success of the PAC Act and put our atomic veterans in place where they belong. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I look forward to working with you all on this committee and urge that you move this legislation forward.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Representative Vanquist, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Boss and Ranking Member Takano, for the opportunity to discuss my 3 bills currently before the Veterans Affairs Committee. We owe an immense debt of gratitude to our veterans. In exchange for their brave service, we promised assistance so that they can pursue a higher education, achieve their academic goals, and become leaders in the workforce as they transition back to civilian life. This is why I proudly introduced H.R. 1965, the Bipartisan Veterans Education Assistance Adjustment Act. This common sense bill increases the GI Bill's annual book stipend for the first time in nearly 2 decades, from $1,000 to $1,400 per year, and it allows for an annual adjustment of this stipend to keep up with inflation. This stipend no longer reflects today's costs and falls woefully short of meeting the financial needs of our veterans today. At a time when millions of veterans are already working to make ends meet, Congress should not allow outdated policy to become yet another barrier to their success. My bill has garnered the support of 22 bipartisan co-sponsors, including 8 members of this committee. Leading veterans groups such as the Veterans of Foreign War, or the VFW, and the American Legion have publicly endorsed this legislation, and President Trump's own Department of Veterans Affairs agreed earlier this year that the book stipend must be increased. I urge you to make passing this bill a priority of this committee. Secondly, I'd like to discuss H.R. 2020, the bipartisan New Mexico Rural Veteran Health Care Access Act. This bill would improve access to health care services for rural veterans in southeast New Mexico by moving both Otero and Eddy counties from the Veterans Integrated Service Network Region 22 into Vision 17. Currently, veterans in the southeast corner of my state drive as far as 5 to 6 hours to get their health care appointments at the main VA hospital in Albuquerque. By moving Otero and Eddy counties into Vision 17 and giving them access to the El Paso VA, that could cut their commute time in half, for some as short as an hour, removing a massive hurdle that these veterans face when trying to seek their doctors. This bill also has bipartisan support, including from a Republican member of this committee, and represents a straightforward fix to a serious problem that veterans in my district face today. Lastly, I'd like to discuss H.R. 1964, the Las Cruces Baton Memorial Clinic Act. This bill would rename the CBOC in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in honor of the Baton Death March. In April 1942, the Japanese Army marched 75,000 American and Filipino POWs from the Baton Peninsula on a 65-mile death march, where thousands perished. Approximately 1,800 New Mexicans were among them, but only 829 of them returned home. New Mexico suffered greatly from this tragedy, so much so that our old state capitol building in Santa Fe was renamed the Baton Memorial Building, and White Sands Missile Range hosts an annual march on base to commemorate those we lost. Renaming the Las Cruces CBOC would serve as a permanent memorial for the brave New Mexican soldiers that we lost in Baton. I strongly urge you to advance these bills to the House floor so that we may fulfill our promise to support our veterans and their education, provide well-deserved health care, and enshrine the memory of those we lost for future generations, and do so in a bipartisan way. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you for being here, and I want to say thank you to the panel. Go ahead.
Thank you all for these really impressive legislative proposals. I had just a few questions for each of you. Congressman Vasquez, the Baton Death March CBOC, the name, the CBOC you'd like to rename, what's the problem there? Is it I seem to recall that the issue was that we named CBOCs for persons, not for certain events, and is your bill seeking to kind of change the VA policy on this?
Thank you, Ranking Member, for that question. First, I will mention that my Republican predecessors in this seat introduced the very same bill as I have. But yes, federal buildings are typically only allowed to be named after an individual, not an event or multiple individuals. But these rules haven't always been followed, and the majority and minority occasionally agree to simultaneously advance multiple bills that break this rule. And for the veterans in my district, and we just lost one of our last Baton Memorial survivor just a few years ago, this is a big deal for our community. As you see from the thousands of people that come from all across the country to participate in the Memorial March.
Well, thank you. And Congresswoman Takuda, I was not aware that there was not an analogous relationship between Native Hawaiians and the VA as we have with Native Americans and Alaska Natives as well. I was aware that during the pandemic, this relationship between the VHA and the Indian Health Service was critical in terms of providing beds for people in Navajo country whose systems were not able to take care of them. Can you tell us, was there a similar kind of challenge in among the Native Hawaiian constituents that you have?
Absolutely. First and foremost, we have Native Hawaiians spread throughout my district on every single island, and when access to care is already limited, our Native Hawaiian health systems steps up, quite frankly, to be able to provide that level of care. That's why we want our veterans to be able to access it as well. If you think about it, Native Hawaiians are not tribes. So they're very different and distinct, which is why oftentimes we have to go back and seek this parity with tribes and Alaska Natives, and that's simply what we're asking for in this case, because as we consider access to care for our veteran population, these 89,000 individuals, we need to make sure that every clinic, every opportunity is available to them to receive care where they live, versus in most cases for my constituent veterans, they have to fly to actually get to the health care that they need, most facilities being on the island of Oahu.
So this is an issue I would like to explore further with you, because I know that there are compacts that are formed between Native American tribes as well, and the VA, that this is something that they're required to do. And I'd like to understand this more, because there's also implications for the civilian population as well. I'm also aware, Congresswoman Titus, I'm very familiar with Dave Crete and the work of Area 51 veterans that you're mentioning. I just want to point out if the Secretary is listening, you have your own discretion under procedures laid out by the PACT Act to expedite relief. And so I would urge that to happen. Mr. Chairman, I've asked for hearings specifically on Area 51, and we should consider legislation that Ms. Titus is bringing up, but I would further also want to expand not only our attention to Area 51, but to Red Hill in Hawaii. The contamination of the water that exposed not only veterans, but also the military families that were stationed there. So I would even recommend that the committee do field hearings both in Nevada and in Hawaii on these matters of toxic exposure in both cases. The PACT Act was able to take care of the Inawatak veterans, the radiation veterans, under a title of the bill actually named after your predecessor, Ms. Tokuda. It was the Mark Takai Inawatak radiation exposure veterans. I am at a loss as to why we were not able to include Area 51. But I would urge, these Area 51 veterans are dying of clearly radiation-related exposure, and I would urge the Secretary to provide them with relief as soon as possible, but to expedite Ms. Titus's legislation as quickly as possible, and to also look very carefully at the consequences of the Red Hill exposure. So thank you.
Representative Tice, I have a quick question. During the time that you were studying this, we deal with this on the committee all the time. As a veteran, I sarcastically laugh whenever we have language about the Vietnam era, and then we say, anybody who served in Vietnam, Laos, or Cambodia, and I say, well, we weren't in Cambodia. So, have we checked with some of these if it is a place where we are to the point that we can release some of these records that would help make sure that we have the names of those that are exposed, or do you know that?
I do, and I've talked to these veterans. If you look at atomic veterans, you've got those who went into Japan after the war, those who cleaned up the testing at Inawitak and Bikini, those who did the war games at the Nevada test site, and then more recently, some who have just done supplemental assistance at the test site now as it exists with this kind of testing. Those records just don't exist. Some of them burned up in St. Louis with all the other records, and others, they say, well, you weren't really there. We don't have any record of it because you were doing secret work out there in Area 51. And so they can't even find evidence that they were there, but they were there. They knew they were there. And so I think getting at those records really
Would
made
help.
a difference.
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it's the Air Force, right? They don't even acknowledge. They won't even acknowledge that they were there. It's bizarre. Yeah.
But we have people on Intel committee that, anyway. And then the other question, could you get the name of the person that is actually buried? He's buried in the punch bowl?
Yes, Dr. McCormick Brown. And so we know exactly where he is interned right now, and we'd love to have the legislation actually brought up to date so that we can actually look at 2013 and before.
And the only question I have for you is the, when we're naming it after an event, okay? And the only thing I would ask is all of the stage committee people in agreement with it? Because, I mean, that's one thing that you have to do.
Absolutely. Every major veterans organization in the state and specifically in that region has endorsed my legislation.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate a wealth of information. Thank you. Now, testifying before us today on the panel 2. We're going to get switched over here. All right, testifying before us today on panel 2, we have Representative Susie Lee of Nevada, and we have Representative Capture. Okay, we had to write that in. Okay, Ohio. We would also, if they may show up, Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, and Dr. Raul Ruiz of California. Representative Lee, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you for providing me with this opportunity to share my perspective on an issue very important to Nevada. This committee was actually the first one I served on when I first came to Congress, honoring my father's service and the service of so many veterans in my district. Our men and women in uniform make countless sacrifices to keep our nation safe. So it's our duty to protect them from invisible enemies like radiation, toxic radiation exposure. I represent Southern Nevada, where 10% of our community has served our country in the armed forces. And unfortunately, hundreds of veterans who were stationed at the Nevada Test and Training Range during the years from 1972 to 2005 have been denied benefits that they rightfully earned. Over 20 years ago, Congress passed a bill that entitled nuclear weapons workers to receive free medical treatment and fair financial compensation for specific illnesses that they contracted as a result of their exposure to radiation and toxic chemicals during nuclear weapons production and testing. However, as was mentioned in the last panel, certain DoD employees were doing work that was so secretive and so sensitive that even though they are covered by the law, they weren't allowed to even prove that they worked there, and therefore they were unable to receive health care. And I just want to tell you, I had a presser with a few of them. I mean, these are men who are suffering atrocious cancers, having half their skull removed, one's on a tracheotomy. They brought radiation home to their families were exposed. So that's why I introduced my bill, which is bipartisan, the Presumption for Radiation or Toxic Exposure Coverage for Troops, or the PROTECT Act, with Congressman Mark Amodei to correct that and correct this oversight. It will expand the similar VA benefits to veterans who were assigned to impacted areas of the NTTR, offering them potentially life-saving medical treatment and financial compensation. This legislation will help save lives and bring justice to thousands of veterans who proudly served our country. The PROTECT Act would establish a presumption of exposure to radiation and toxins for service members at NTTR from 1972 to 2005, meaning that exposure is presumed to have occurred, which would simplify the process for veterans seeking benefits for illnesses linked to this exposure. This would help thousands of veterans, civilian DoD employees, and their families to finally receive the benefits, the care, and the justice that is decades overdue. This bill's not asking for new funding. It's simply about ensuring that veterans have access to benefits they're already legally entitled to. Thank you again for providing me with that opportunity.
Thank you. Representative Kapner, you're recognized for 3 minutes. They have called votes. I want to let you know that. But we want to hear your, and then we'll kind of take a break after that.
Thank you, Chairman Bost, very much, and Ranking Member Takano, thank you for your service to our country. You really have made a difference for veterans that I represent, and I thank both of you. I'm here today because of an anomaly. I live in Ohio. North of me is a state called Michigan. Wars were fought over this territory years ago, and some of the relationships never seem to change. But I'm here to say that I probably represent one of a half dozen or fewer places in the country where the mother hospital, the CBOC, for our region is located in another state. I'm not against that state. I'm not against the institution, the University of Michigan. I have a degree from there. But from where I live, the veterans that come from several counties in Northwest Ohio spend half a day trying to access medical care. This historic relationship goes back to 1948 after World War II, before my part of Ohio even had a medical university, which we do. Now, what I'm here today is to ask, to plea with you, please help me find a way to take away the discomfort that attends to our veterans who have to waste a half a day up in Ann Arbor, either being taken up on a bus or coming back on the bus. Cancer patients who get infusions, they throw up on the bus. They have to sit in a waiting room after they get the infusion. This is not the best America can do. But this anomaly is really annoying. Our medical university at Toledo was established in the 1960s. It's existed now for over 60 years. The VA doesn't even see us. We are a state university. I have the only pharmacy school in all of northern Ohio. We've built a Red Cross blood unit there that serves over 100 different hospitals in the region. We've tried so very hard to try to get the VA to see us clearly, and they don't. I'm not against University of Michigan. If some of our patients want to go there, I'm all for it. But in northern Ohio, there are only 2 state medical universities, one in Cleveland, the Stokes VA, which is the largest, one of the largest, I think second largest VA in the country, and then us in Toledo. So we're toddling Toledo, we're not Cleveland, we're not Columbus, but we have 87, well, I think the number is 86,000 veterans here, 86,135 veterans. I'm pleading with you, create a title in a bill that'll come forward, that'll give us our day in the sun. It's so long overdue. We're next to the state psychiatric hospital. There are only 6 of those in Ohio. We have so many vets with PTS. I wanted to build a wing on that, working with the state. That's a hard job to do, but to try to get better services to 86,000 veterans. And I speak on behalf, I'm sure, of Republicans who aren't here with me today just because of the scheduling, who have the same issue. It's too far for our people to go. I thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to, Representative District Lecter, you're granted permission to speak from the dais as a member of the committee. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to the ranking member for offering this opportunity. It is an honor to serve this committee. I also want to thank my colleagues here on the committee and those here today who are speaking up for our veterans. Like many physicians, I trained at the VA. They're like at every stage of my career. I didn't take care of Republicans or Democrats. I just took care of people. This is the spirit that I bring to this committee, one that is guided by care for our veterans, not partisanship. Our veterans deserve durable policy that fulfills our promise to care for them, and they deserve a Congress that can come together and deliver it. I appreciate the willingness of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to work together on this mission. My priorities on this committee are clear. Every veteran, and when I say every, I mean every woman veteran, every veteran of color, every transgender veteran, every immigrant veteran, and every disabled veteran must receive the high-quality VA healthcare that they have earned. Veterans should never wait, worry, or wonder whether the care they need will be there. Whether they're expanding the access to mental health care, strengthening women's health clinics, or ensuring that veterans in rural communities can get timely care, we clearly have work to do. We must end veteran homelessness and ensure that every veteran and their family have a pathway to stable, affordable housing. We know what works. Housing paired with wraparound services and targeted support. That is why I introduced the Every Veteran Housed Act to remove barriers to proven interventions that save lives and restore dignity. No veteran should ever sleep on the street in the country they served. I look forward to this committee's support in moving this forward. We must also create real pathways to economic opportunity. I am proud that my first bill to pass the House was the Fast Vets Act. I want to thank Representatives Mesmer, McGarvey, and Van Orden for standing with me in that effort. The Fast Vets Act improved the Veteran Readiness and Employment VRE program that is faster to ensure more veterans can enroll and benefit. I am also working on legislation to strengthen recruitment and retention for VRE counselors. Veterans deserve timely access to high-quality individual career counseling. We cannot reduce backlogs or improve outcomes without investing in the people who provide that support. Veterans have earned more than a wait list. They deserve a real pathway into the workforce, and I invite my colleagues to join me in this effort. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to state plainly that our values must guide our work on this committee. Our budgets tell the story of our priorities. This Congress has found money for billionaires, and it is time that we find money for veterans. If we say we honor veterans but fail to fund the programs that keep them healthy, housed, and employed, then our words do not matter. I will work with anyone on this committee who is ready to put veterans above politics and choose progress over posturing. We have a responsibility to meet this moment with clarity, compassion, and courage. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll yield back and look forward to working together.
Thank you, Representative Fitzpatrick. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Boss, Ranking Member Takano. As you continue your critical work, I want to urge you to consider legislative action on policies to address the prevalence and impact of ALS on our military and veteran communities. Myself and several of my colleagues are proud to co-lead the Veterans with ALS Reporting Act, which would require the VA to study and provide needed data on the prevalence of ALS amongst our veteran population and establish a strategy for improving timely access to clinical trials for our nation's veterans. Chairman, I'm also proud to sponsor the Justice for ALS Veterans Act, which is a bipartisan, bicameral bill which ensures surviving spouses of veterans who pass due to ALS receive the full benefits that they have rightfully earned. Our veterans, as this committee well knows, are due our utmost support and respect. They are heroes who fought for us, and when they face ALS, we must fight for them and their families. Veterans, Mr. Chairman, are twice as likely to be diagnosed with ALS compared to the general population. This makes the mission even more critical, especially in understanding the genesis of this trend. Under current law, surviving spouses and families of veterans who had a service-connected disability that's deemed fully debilitating for at least 8 continuous years before death receive an additional monthly stipend from the VA. However, with an average life expectancy of only 2 to 5 years after diagnosis with ALS, our ALS veterans often do not survive long enough to meet this requirement, leaving their families without this benefit. Denying a surviving spouse benefits because their loved ones didn't live long enough to meet an arbitrary requirement is not just unfair, it is a betrayal of our commitment to those who served. The Justice for ALS Veterans Act rights this wrong and ensures that the families of our brave servicemen and women receive the support that they have earned and that they are due. Thank you, Chairman Boss, Ranking Member Takano, for your consideration for working with us on this legislation. We look forward to moving this through committee and once again this Congress in addressing the prevalence of the impact of ALS amongst our veteran community. And I yield back.
Thank you.
I know we got to vote.
Yeah, but you need question.
Just real quick, Mr. Fitzpatrick, I fully support the idea of what that you're bringing forward about ALS and the study of it. We're working on it now. Yes. And Ms. Capter, we should definitely find out if we can get a study on whether we can get a CBOC in that area or a mini clinic. And I want to talk to you about a program within VA called Closer to Me, which specifically addresses how to help cancer patients with infusions who live remotely from clinics. It saves VA money, and it also the Minnesota VA is the pioneer in this. I want to kind of call your attention to that. And with regard to Ms. Lee, I've already asked the chairman if he would consider doing a field hearing on Area 51. I commend your bipartisan work with Congressman Amidei. Those are my comments. We got to go vote, I know.
Can I just want to say we have language that has made it into the NDAA, so during the conference, we're hoping that it sticks and stays. So just so you are aware of that.
Okay, well, we have input into, each have input into the NDA process.
Members, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, I just wanted to put on the record also, we do have a CBOC, but here's what happens. They don't hire people in the Toledo area because there's something called the locality pay adjustment, and they hire people in Ann Arbor. They pay, they have a 28.82% adjustment for their higher cost of living there. And those people drive down then an hour and a half a day, down another hour and a half back. It is such a messed up relationship. The focus has to be on the veterans. And so we really do, maybe there are a couple other places in the country that have this bi-state relationships. It's not good.
So it's understaffed, you're telling me, your
They drive down and then they go back home. They don't interact with our veterans posts. They're from another planet. And we want the ability for our medical university to have a direct relationship with the VA. After 60 years, it's time.
Well, we were speaking of another problem that we have to deal with, and that's the fact that that our VISN aren't working. They're not uniform. They are not. It's just like we always say: if you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA. If you've seen one VISN, you've seen one VISN. They're not uniform. It's a thing that we've been noticing. I'm working with the secretary at this time and asking him because you can. The person that actually set up the VISN system has actually said himself that that was not the way it was planned, and it is not working. And so we need to revamp it. And we do need to get back. So thank you all for being here. As a vote has been called in the House, the committee will stand in recess. Subject to the call of the chair, I hopefully be reconvening 10 minutes after the start of the last vote. Thanks. Committee will reconvene, and our third panel to testify before here today is Representative Bishop of Georgia. Representative Stanton should be joining us from Arizona, Representative Underwood from Illinois, and Dr. Rees from California. With that, Representative Bishop, you are recognized for 3 minutes to deliver your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Bost, Ranking Member Takano, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you all for what you do to help America's veterans. As a representative whose district is home to Fort Benning, Robins Air Force Base, and Marine Corps Logistics Base, Albany, the welfare of our veterans is at the forefront of my work. I appreciate this opportunity to highlight a bill I've introduced, H.R. 333, the Disabled Veterans Tax Termination Act. The purpose of H.R. 333 is to ensure the concurrent receipt of military retirement and VA disability compensation for all veterans, regardless of their Veterans Affairs disability rating. Currently, veterans rated lower than 50% and who retire with less than 20 years of service cannot concurrently receive full retirement pay and disability pay. This bill eliminates the arbitrary penalties and extends eligibility to Chapter 61 disability to all honorable retirees. For those not familiar with veterans' retirement compensation, currently veterans receive two types, retirement pay and disability pay. Currently, for veterans' disability is rated less than 50%, then whatever the dollar value is in disability pay, it's subtracted from their retirement pay. This bill would allow veterans to get their full disability pay and retirement pay without one being subtracted from the other. We cannot tell our veterans their service is valued while simultaneously withholding their earned benefits. H.R. 333 is supported by every major veteran service organization, including the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Vets, Wounded Warrior Project. I hope that as the committee prioritizes its work for 2026, that you will consider marking up and/or incorporating H.R. 333 into your efforts. Advancing this legislation sends a clear message to both concurrent service members and those considering enlisting in our all-volunteer force, that America will keep its promise and take care of its own. I urge the committee to favorably report out H.R. 333, and I thank you for allowing me to appear before you today.
Thank you. Representative Underwood, you are recognized for your 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Ranking Member Takano for the opportunity to testify about urgently needed legislation to support the health and well-being of our nation's veterans. While I currently sit on the House Appropriations Committee, I was honored to serve on the House Veterans Affairs Committee during the 116th and 117th Congresses. Serving veterans is one of the greatest privileges we have as members of Congress, and I am honored to serve our veterans both on and off this committee. And that's why I'm so excited about the momentum behind my bipartisan, bicameral Lactation Spaces for Veteran Moms Act, which I'm proud to lead in the House in partnership with Senator Rosen and Senator Murkowski. As a nurse, I know the health benefits of breastfeeding for moms and babies. My bill ensures that every VA medical center contains a clean, private space specifically designed for nursing for veterans and their families. Just a few weeks ago, the Senate passed this bill by unanimous consent. I look forward to working with this committee to bring it to the House floor as soon as possible. I am also honored to testify again today on one of the first bills I introduced in Congress with my friend, Senator Duckworth, the Copay Fairness for Veterans Act. Earlier this year, the bill passed out of the subcommittee, and I look forward to working with you to advance that bill to the full committee for consideration. At a time when research shows that veterans face worse health outcomes than the general public and have a higher burden of chronic diseases, no veteran should go without ready access to preventive health care services that can improve their health and quality of life. For nearly 15 years, civilians have accessed preventive services without copays thanks to the Affordable Care Act. But veterans receiving care through the VA still do not have that same guarantee. That means that veterans may be charged for mammograms, cancer screenings, diabetes care, and screenings for depression and anxiety. That's not fair to the folks who have served our country, and my bill would fix this injustice and fulfill our promise to our veterans. Finally, I'm excited to share that I'm preparing to reintroduce the Maternal Health for Veterans Act, which was reported out of the Health Subcommittee last Congress. The United States is in a worsening maternal health crisis, and veteran moms are dying. My bipartisan bill authorizes $15 million per year for VA's maternity care programs and requires annual public reporting and recommendations on maternal health from VA. I'm eager to work with you to advance this bill this Congress as soon as possible. Thank you again for the opportunity to collaborate on these important pieces of legislation to better serve our veterans, and I yield back.
Thank you. Dr. Reeves, we're going to you next, and then Mr. Stanton has joined us, and we'll go to him next. So go to him after you. So you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and it's good to be back in the VA committee. Good to see everybody. I want to thank you, Chairman Bost and Ranking Member Takano, for holding this hearing and providing me the opportunity to urge you, Chairman Bost, to allow a vote on the Major Richard Starr Act. This critical and bipartisan piece of legislation that Republican Bilirakis and I are leading will rectify an injustice that has kept combat disabled veterans from receiving their full military and retirement benefits. Currently, over 50,000 combat disabled veterans were medically retired are being shortchanged. They're being shortchanged while costs are going up. Because of an outdated and unfair policy, they're forced to give up a portion of their retirement pay just to receive the disability compensation. So they get injured and they can't get their retirement pay. This is wrong, and it must end. That's why we must vote and pass the Major Richard Starr Act, which is a bipartisan effort to finally correct this injustice that has affected thousands of our nation's heroes. Military retirement pay and disability compensation are two separate benefits. One is earned through years of dedicated service. The other is owed because of injuries sustained while defending our country. These brave men and women shouldn't be punished for getting hurt in the line of duty. This bill is named in honor of Major Richard A. Starr, a father, husband, and a combat veteran who was medically retired due to injuries sustained in war. And sadly, Major Starr lost his battle with cancer in 2021, but his legacy lives on through this bill and in our commitment to do right by those who served. The Major Richard Starr Act would allow veterans to receive both retirement and disability benefits that they've earned without an offset. It's supported by all leading veteran service organizations, and it has overwhelming bipartisan support with over 300 co-sponsors in the House. Look, guys, if we pass this out of committee, if you allow a vote, and it gets to the House floor, with 300 co-sponsors, this would pass out of the House floor. It's a done deal. That means 300 votes. This bill will pass the House, but it needs to pass committee first. That's why you, Chairman Bost, are the gatekeeper first, and then Speaker Johnson is the second gatekeeper to allow a vote on this major bill. So I'm urging you not to deny this justice for veterans. It's in your hands. It's your responsibility. You have the decision-making authority to get it out of this committee. It's not just a policy. It's a matter of fairness, a matter of dignity. It's a matter of honoring the promises we make to those who wear the uniform. So I stand with our veterans. This is a pragmatic way to show that you all really care, support our veterans by passing this legislation that will actually improve their lives. Please pass the Major Richard Starr Act out of this committee. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Stanton, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member Takano for holding this important hearing. Ranking Member Takano for making the trip to Phoenix to visit our VA hospital. I appreciate that greatly. My Veterans Advisory Council for Arizona District 4, a group of former service members and their families, have raised an important issue again and again, and that of predatory claim sharks. When veterans file for VA benefits, they do so with the help of an accredited representative. Plenty of veteran service organizations offer this important assistance, but too many predatory, unaccredited companies, so-called claim sharks, take advantage of our veterans, charging high fees to help file VA benefit claims. Veterans were swindled out of over $400 million last year alone. That's why I'm proud to back Congressman Pappas's Guard VA Benefits Act, which would reinstate explicit criminal penalties on claim sharks. And I've got a bill, the bipartisan legislation, the Standardized Accreditation Information for Veteran Ease, or SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, H.R. 1746, requires the VA to keep an updated, searchable database of accredited representatives and create a trademark that they can use on their website, social media, or marketing materials to be easily identified. It's a common sense solution to help veterans more easily differentiate between those who are legitimately accredited by the VA and those who are not. It's a direct suggestion from the veterans on my advisory council. Congress should also look more fully to highlight VSO services during the Transition Assistance Program for service members and their families transitioning from active duty. Veterans won't know what they have access to and a right to free assistance if we don't advertise it better. My advisory council and I are also concerned, I know as you are as well, about addressing veteran homelessness and ensuring vets get the very best health care. Before I came to Congress, I served as mayor of the city of Phoenix, and the city was recognized by President Obama at that time as the first city in the nation to end chronic homelessness among military veterans. We learned a big lesson. It's one thing to put a roof over a chronically homeless veteran, but it's another thing to provide the support services to keep them off the street, to break their cycle of homelessness. Mental health services, health care, substance abuse treatment, that's how we broke the cycle of homelessness. But the President Trump's proposal for the Department of Housing and Urban Development is massively disrupting homelessness funding and shifting away from a housing plus services model. Because of this, more than 4,000 veterans could lose housing, increasing veteran homelessness by 12%. And we have no way of estimating the number of veterans who may be living in other programs funded by the Continuum of Care programs that are not designated specifically for veterans. So I hope the Trump administration will work with Congress to prevent this unfortunate backsliding. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. You're the last one here, so you're the only one who's going to get a question.
Or even, it's not really, I just want to commend you on your interest in Congressman Stanton on the claim shark issue. It's something that I am very passionate about as the author of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which expanded eligibility for VA benefits to 3.5 million veterans. And we know that over 1.5 million veterans have had their claims approved, but this has also been, unfortunately, an incentive for for-profit, unscrupulous operators known as claim sharks to target veterans. And I really commend you for standing up and looking to protect veterans from the predations. I mean, it means they could lose thousands and thousands of dollars of their earned benefits because of that. And so I appreciate that. I also share your concern related to veteran homelessness and the administration. If you want to respond, that's fine. But so I commend you on both counts, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just address it real quick. You know, those of us who have worked in the issue of homelessness, in addition to being a former mayor, I ran the Continuum of Care for my region. We know what works to break the cycle of homelessness. It's housing plus services. The administration wants to go in a different direction, which is just more emergency beds. It's certainly in the short run, would probably get more people off the streets in the short run, but in the long run, it does not break the cycle of homelessness, and we know it'll result in more homelessness overall. So that's why I think for both veterans and the larger community, we should keep going on the housing plus services model.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for saving, of course, the best for last.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we need the fourth panel to move forward of those that are here. We need to switch over our nameplates. Where's Lou? Okay. No. I know Lou. I know Lou. Are you sure that isn't, is that Gonzalez? Gonzalez, yeah, okay. All right, we're going to start. I'll introduce who is supposed to be here and who is here. Today, for the fourth panel, we have Representative Hayes of Connecticut. Representative Correa should be along from California. Carbajal of California as well. Gonzalez of Texas. Stansbury of New Mexico. And McKellen of Virginia. So, Representative Hayes, we're going to start with you, and you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before the Veterans Affairs Committee to share my policy ideas on how we can better serve veterans and their families. I keep coming back to this committee. I came before you in June to discuss my Caring for Survivors Act, which would expand benefits for survivors of service members and veterans who have given their lives in service to the United States of America. Today, I would like to encourage you to advance the legislation through this committee as a next step toward eventual passage on the House floor. When a service member dies in the line of duty, or a veteran dies from service-related injuries or illnesses, their surviving family members receive a monthly benefit known as Dependency and Indemnity Compensation, or DIC. Unfortunately, the DIC rate has been minimally adjusted since the VA established the benefit in 1993, and currently has lower rates and more stringent rules than other federal survivor programs. My Caring for Survivors Act modernizes DIC benefits through 2 reforms. The bill raises the monthly DIC benefit by more than $450 per recipient, bringing DIC payments in line with surviving payments that other federal civilian employees are eligible to receive. Additionally, the bill reduces the time frame a veteran must be disabled to qualify for DIC benefits from 10 to 5 years. Together, these provisions would increase DIC benefits and broaden eligibility to ensure families receive the financial help they deserve. I recognize the cost concerns of implementing this legislation, but the cost is likely lower than the reported estimate based on updated data from the Department of Veterans Affairs. I often hear from survivors of service members and veterans in my district and across the country who depend on DIC benefits to cover their basic expenses. I became interested in this because veterans, their surviving spouses, stop me at parades and at events. I receive emails from people all over the country telling me the story of what it means to them and their families. These individuals continue to express the life-changing difference the Caring for Survivors Act would make, including the financial difference between barely getting by and having a small degree of security, while also an acknowledgement that the Congress recognizes the sacrifices of our service members and veterans. Supporting our veterans and military families is an intentional choice that we can make. I encourage this committee to hold a vote on my Caring for Survivors Act and advance the legislation to the House floor. It would be an incredible show of support for the surviving family members of our veterans who have died in the line of service. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Representative Garcia. Gonzalez, I apologize.
Day. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before this committee to advocate for the construction of a new Department of Veteran Affairs Medical Center in the Rio Grande Valley. We have an increasing number of veterans. We've got about 50,000 veterans in the region that do not have the necessary medical care in the region. They're traveling 300 miles to get this care. 24,000, about half of the service members have a service-connected disability. Unfortunately, because neither the Coastal Bend nor the Rio Grande Valley currently have a VA medical center, many constituents are forced to travel over 300 miles to get the care they need. I urge the committee to work with me to right this wrong. I'd also like to highlight the significance of H.R. 2102, the Major Richard Starr Act. This important bill would ensure that all combat disabled veterans receive concurrent receipt of their disability compensation and their retirement. We must ensure our disabled veterans do not struggle to make ends meet. Finally, recognizing the service of veterans must also include recognizing the bravery of military working dogs who perform their jobs with extreme courage. Military working dogs saved countless lives by detecting explosives and leading search and rescue missions. It is time they are honored as heroes. And that's why I've reintroduced Sergeant Fieldie Act to allow the burial of deceased military working dogs in veteran cemeteries. This bill is to honor Sergeant Fieldie, who served 3 tours in Afghanistan and earned the K-9 Medal of Courage Award in 2016 and was selected as a military hero dog in 2018. I urge you and your colleagues to work with me in this bipartisan way to advance this bill. And lastly, I can't end this conversation without talking about our deported veterans. I can't think of anything more disgraceful than to deport folks who have worn our uniform and fought for our freedom. There's record of them being in about 37 countries around the world. I intend to reintroduce the Repatriate Our Patriots Act. I hope finally we can get this done. This should be a bipartisan issue. We need to stop deporting American veterans to foreign countries. It's a real disgrace and a real blemish on our record. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Representative Carbajal, you are recognized for 3 minutes. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Bost and Ranking Member Takano, for allowing me to speak before this committee today. I always appreciate coming before a fellow Marine, Mr. Chairman. As a veteran myself, I know firsthand the sacrifices that come with military service and the challenges that follow when that service ends. That's why in Congress, I've made it my mission to ensure that every veteran has access to the care and benefits they have earned, without delay and without unnecessary barriers. One area I've been focusing on is the long wait times and frustrating delays our veterans face when they call local VA medical centers and clinics. I believe that if you serve our nation, the process to access your health care should be fast and simple. Enhancements have been made over the years, but it's still not enough. Yet for many veterans on the Central Coast and beyond, a simple phone call to schedule an appointment or ask a question can turn into endless holds, confusing transfers, and dead ends. I know that personally as well. My staff and I consistently hear from veterans who have phone wait times exceeding an hour or more, or they are promised to call back within 24 to 48 hours, only to never receive a call. I have even heard from constituents who were forced to drive more than an hour to the nearest CBOC to make an appointment in person after failing to get through to anyone on the phone. Simply put, this is unacceptable, and I think you agree with me. To me, this is a sign the system is failing our nation's veterans. It's critical for Congress to act and provide additional resources to the Veterans Health Administration. Only with stronger investments into our local VA systems can we ensure medical centers and clinics have the staff and tools they need to answer calls quickly, schedule appointments efficiently, and treat veterans with the respect they deserve. I have long called for these investments, and I will continue to advocate for our veterans until this issue is fixed. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, thank you for allowing me to come before your committee today, subcommittee.
Thank you. Ranking Member?
Thank you very much for your proposal, Congressman Carbajal. I'll be more than glad to work with you on trying to advance it. Congresswoman Hayes, your legislation, which would address the DIC payment gap, is long overdue. I'm a co-sponsor of your bill. I want you to know that the majority is moving. I commend the majority for moving forward a bill that we had in legislative hearing yesterday. I don't endorse the pay for. But what I think is really important about the legislation that you are the lead on is that it takes care of the entire issue, which is the 11% differential in the survivor pay that the spouse of a veteran receives versus what a federal employee's spouse, survivor, would get, right? It's a long concept. The legislation moved forward by the majority would take care of like 1% of the cost of living, but not even in a permanent way. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that I can work with the chairman to actually incorporate and take care of a bigger chunk of that differential, and maybe even the full differential, depending on what this pay for that I'm working on can net out to be. So I want to just, again, commend you for your dogged advocacy for these survivors, and they need and deserve this money. It's shameful that we haven't done more for them over the years, and we need to do it now. We need to get it done in this Congress, and I'm hopeful we can do more for these DIC payments this Congress. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I welcome you to take any or all of the pieces of this legislation to incorporate. I don't care who gets the credit for it. What I am, coming to Congress and hearing these stories and understanding the discrepancy between our surviving spouses and other federal employees is something that, quite frankly, I was embarrassed about as I spoke to widows and children. And what I found is that many of them had lost their family member way too soon, at a point where they were still figuring out life and struggling with bills. We're not talking about people in retirement who have planned for unfortunate instances. And I've come before this committee, I've talked to organizations around the country and just gotten just a much better appreciation for what this means to families. And I think of all the things that we do in Congress, something that we should all be able to agree upon is to take care of our veterans and their family members who allow us to even have the ability and the freedom and the right to come here and debate these things openly and have dissenting opinions and disagree and really thrive in this republic that we call America. And I just feel like that's one of the things that we can get right. It's a really small thing, and we talk about the procedure and the process and how we get it done, but we get so many things done here and we just figure it out, and I think this is one of those things that we just need to figure out.
Well, the way I would phrase it, if we can find, if this Congress found it possible to, fund trillions of dollars in permanent tax breaks, we can find the few billions of dollars it would take to make sure that the spouses, the surviving spouses and children of veterans, combat veterans, get equal treatment to the surviving spouses and children of federal employees.
They've earned it.
They've earned it. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you all. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go to Representative McClellan, and unless you want to stay, we had asked the questions, so you all are good. Yeah. You're recognized for 3 minutes to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Takano and members of the committee for holding this Member Day today. I am here to discuss one of my top priorities this Congress, which is to improve the Department of Veterans Affairs work-study program. And I have a bill, H.R. 5965, the Student Veteran Work-Study Modernization Act, that'll do just that. As you know, our veterans give so much to our communities, and it's imperative that we do everything within our power to support their needs as they transition out of active duty service and back into civilian life. This includes efforts to modernize, improve, and expand the availability of programs that train and educate our veterans for civilian jobs following their service. One such program that serves veterans as they transition into civilian life is the VA Work Study Program, which allows veterans to receive a part-time paying job on campus or at another VA-approved employer while enrolled as a student in a 2-year or 4-year higher education institution, vocational or professional program. Currently, however, only students who are enrolled at least as a 3/4 time student are allowed to participate in the VA Work-Study Program. This requirement excludes half-time students, ignoring the fact that our student veterans are older than traditional students, often have children or other family members to care for, have unique mental health needs, and financial considerations that are distinct from traditional students. And as a result, the requirement to be a 3/4 enrolled student does not take into consideration the needs of those veteran students who need half-time enrollment as a necessity. I introduced the Student Veteran Work-Study Modernization Act to provide student veterans with a flexible work-study program that considers their unique needs and circumstances. And this legislation was previously led by former Representative Matt Cartwright and would update the VA work-study program to improve accessibility for student veterans. Specifically, the bill creates a 5-year pilot program to expand VA work-study eligibility for student veterans who are enrolled half-time and require the VA to report data on the work-study program to Congress, including the number of participating veterans, the percentage of student veterans who obtain a 4-year degree, and how many student veterans obtain full-time work. This bill passed out of committee in 2022 via voice vote, but didn't advance in the Senate. And so I am hoping that we will be able to get it across the finish line this year. And I thank you for your support and your attention today.
Thank you. And you have a question?
Well, just wanted to say, Representative McClellan, thank you so much for this legislation. Look forward to working with you, and you know, we can definitely improve the work-study program for our veterans. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are possibly looking at your bill for one of the hearings as well. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Cabral. No, I'm sorry, Correa. I'm sorry, Lou. You are all by yourself now on the panel, so you're recognized for 3 minutes, my friend.
For veterans. Psychedelics, treating PTSD, treating drug addiction for veterans. 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to Mexico to visit a clinic treating patients for PTSD. I met an Air Force fighter pilot from the Midwest there to get treated. I asked him, I said, "What is your name?" Didn't want to tell me who he was. He just said, "I need to get over my drug addiction. I don't want my wings taken away from me." My ask today, look at our legislation that Jack Bergman and I have introduced, HR 2623, innovative therapies. 20 suicides per day in America. That's way too many. These veterans, these armed service officers should be getting their treatment here in the United States. Second of all, Orange County Veteran Cemetery, we're still fighting for funding. California, home to the largest number of vets in the United States. We need an OC Veteran Cemetery. Thirdly, continue to ask we look at the issue of deported veterans. And finally, I'd like to talk about anesthesiology, potential changes to the VA surgical anesthesia, patient safety standards. Bottom line, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, let's continue to have medical doctors that are administering anesthesia to our veterans who are undertaking their treatments. 4 simple asks, Mr. Chairman, all reasonable.
Remember, you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to you know, psychedelics and treatment, I think there's bipartisan interest in this topic. The chairman and I have both. On the Democratic side, we've held roundtables on the issue, and I can tell you at Loma Linda. At the Loma Linda Medical Center, not far from both of us in Southern California, that there have actually been trials of MDMA, and it's a good moment to maybe check in on this. Maybe we.
And Mr. Ranking Member, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we have members of Congress who are veterans who have been treated
have done it.
and cured.
And cured. That's correct. One on this committee.
Yeah. So, Chairman, we might want to get an update and do a hearing. And,
Yeah,
and bring all
this is an issue that all of us are kind of monitoring. We were a little upset whenever the feds didn't approve the
FDA or whatever.
The FDA based.
Oh, that's right.
And remember, they did not approve it. We were hoping it would, which would clear. Now we would love to try to figure out how to get the VA to go ahead and go through some testing and stuff like that. I know we are working with General Bergman and you're not getting any pushback from us. We're just trying to get it through.
And, Mr. Chairman, VA Secretary Doug Collins is fully on
I know
board with us on this.
he's aware of it as well, and it is. Let me say this, because when it was first brought to me, being an older white male who grew up in the '60s, when someone said psychedelic, it was like whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I realized so many people don't understand. And I was actually talking with one of our members at an event last night, and he said that he said he likes the idea, but he said I don't want it to be like the marijuana test where you have to take marijuana all the time or opiates. And I said, no, you don't understand. It is a 3-time max during the same process, 7 to 10 days, and it works. And so, and it's a shame that we're having to have groups pay for people to go to Mexico to get a treatment that actually works.
One final comment on this, Mr. Chairman, that these medications, psychedelics, ibogaine, are very powerful.
Yes.
They have to be administered by trained physicians.
Right.
You will flatline and you will die if you don't have trained personnel around. And that's part of the ask, which is not only do you normalize this, but you got to have the trained.
And if you talk to the people that have actually done it, they will tell anybody going into it, it is not a fun thing, but it is a cure.
And so it's important to anyone listening that we're not encouraging people to self-administer.
No, but not in any way, shape, or form. This is a very good procedure.
Supervised. There is actually follow-up, and it's very carefully monitored. And so I really thank you for raising this issue. And Mr. Chairman, it's a good impetus for you and I to work together on this issue. With regard to deported veterans, it's a shame and a scandal. Let me think of all the words I can think of that.
It's an injustice.
Thank you. It's an injustice for men and women who've worn the cloth of our nation to be deported. That is actually something that Americans don't believe happens, and it does happen. And I do have legislation called the Veterans Service Recognition Act. It's bipartisan, and Representative Vicente Gonzalez preceded you, raised this issue. I wholeheartedly agree that we need to turn our attention to this issue. We should not be deporting anyone who has served our country. This is just simply wrong. And anybody who serves in the military, they're legally here in the country. They have a green card. They have a pathway to citizenship. We should be making sure that the military facilitates that they get their citizenship when they are serving our country, so this does not become an issue.
And on the veteran cemetery, a lot of the funding is in place. Real estate is there. Just a little short.
Is this the old El Toro?
No,
it's not
El Toro didn't want us.
Okay.
So we're moving to Anaheim, who gladly is welcoming us. And we just a few $1 million short, and we will have a veteran cemetery for Orange County veterans.
This is the state veteran cemetery?
State, federal, yes.
So we're looking for completion money?
Correct, correct.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yes.
Representative Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to raise the fact that the state of Oregon has approved psilocybin for medical use in observed situations. We have a VA in Portland. I wonder if there might be a mechanism for veterans at least to be able to get reimbursed care within the United States in that state while we're waiting for federal legislative change. And also want to underline the importance of honoring the service of our veterans who are being deported. It is shameful. Thank you.
And we want to remember this, and I don't disagree with you on these issues, but that issue specifically on the deporting would be a judicial committee, not this committee, but glad to hear about it here.
And finally, sir, on anesthesiology for our veterans that are getting treated at the VA.
Yeah.
Make sure it's a physician. You know, you don't need a doctor until you need a doctor.
Yeah, with anesthesiology and all of them, as we look into it, it has always been the policy of VA to follow the guidelines of the state in which the VA is located. And a lot of these are pushing, and that's what we get drug in as members into turf battles quite often. I agree with you, and if your state says that, then it would happen. But that's a whole lot of the way the VA has handled it over the years. And watching them all of a sudden say, no, we're going to do it different than the state, and we're located in the state, sometimes gets a little, it's an issue I've dealt with quite a bit, so.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, Mr. Correa, thank you so much. I've known you a long time, and you have, a dogged interest in representing the interest of veterans and their care, and I thank you so much for that doggedness.
Our veterans, tremendous. Our freedom, and a whole lot more. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for serving.
Yes.
You're worth it.
Thank you.
That's always my answer.
America's worth it.
Yeah.
Our country is worth fighting for. Mr. Chairman, we do have on our side some pending requests for information from VA related to psychedelics. We'd be very grateful for your help with the Secretary to get those requests fulfilled.
I will be speaking to him later today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members, thank you for your time and indulgence.
Thank you.
Representative Stanmeyer, you are recognized for 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee. First and foremost, let me say thank you for your service to this great nation and to all of our veterans out there. We thank you for your service and your sacrifice. I come before you today to talk about the veterans issues that are important for New Mexico. And in particular, I want to focus on the issue that I think so many veterans are struggling with across the country, and that is to increase services for mental illness, depression, and for housing and transitional services. In New Mexico, we have a long and proud tradition of service. Our communities have one of the highest rates of military service in the United States. Our communities come from every tribal, rural, urban community across the state and have a long stretch of service that goes back to both our Navajo code talkers, those who were captured at Bataan, and many, many others who have served in the armed forces since. And that is why service is not only a part of our blood and our culture, but it is also our responsibility as members who represent our service members in New Mexico, and to ensure that they have the program, services, and care that they deserve when they come back, including for the invisible wounds of war, including PTSD, depression, anxiety, and so many other disorders and conditions that make it difficult to transition back to civilian life. In New Mexico, we have seen firsthand the consequences of lack of care, inadequate access, particularly in our rural and tribal communities in which people have to travel long distances, and there are additional cultural issues at play in care. And so as we passed the historic PACT Act, which expanded VA care and support for our veterans that have been exposed to various substances, it's also important that we make a similar investment in mental health, housing, and other transitional services on that scale. And so I come before you, not with a specific bill, but mostly for an ask to increase funding for those things. Finally, I do want to highlight a couple of bills that we are championing that are important to our veterans and to our military families. We ask for your support in passing the Major Richard Starr Act, which is very important to ensure that there is full medical retirement and also VA disability without benefit offsets. We also wanted to elevate to your oversight responsibilities that we're hearing about a lot of delays with the CHAMP VA benefits, limited provider access, and VA appeals that are continuing to take a year or longer. And so we ask for your support in helping to get a more expedited review of those benefit and disability reviews. So with that, I say thank you so much for your service and for the opportunity to testify.
Ranking member?
Thank you, Representative Stansbury, for your interest and commitment to expanding mental health services. I've actually visited the New Mexico, the Albuquerque VA, the medical center there, and they do tremendous work there. But we need to do better in terms of, in a very rural state such as yours, making sure that we get mental health services. It's a struggle everywhere in terms of getting the providers. But there are solutions, and I'm looking forward to working with you on your legislation.
Thank you.
Let me, any questions? Okay. Let me say a couple things. One, we've heard from several on the Richard Starr Act. I understand this, that the jurisdiction on the Richard Starr Act is HASC first, Veteran Committee second. Leadership is aware. Actually, the speaker spoke with a lot of VSOs specifically on that issue yesterday. And it wasn't a negative, it was a looking at it, trying to figure it out. And then also on your other issue with the CHAMP, and when you have those problems, if your committee, or if your staff wants to reach out to our committee, we're glad to try to help you guide through that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Point out that we have a subcommittee hearing next week on CHAMP VA that the committee is doing.
That'd be good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I yield back.
Do you have any closing remarks?
The closing remarks I have, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the convening this member day. I just want to reiterate my commitment to working with you and getting a pathway forward on the DIC
revenue stream.
You know what I'm talking about. Working out the pay for on that.
Yep.
I do want to get that done, and I'm happy to hear that the speaker is seriously engaging a pathway forward on the STAR Act.
Yep. So with that, I'm going to say, first off, thanks for being here. And I want to say to our members, even though they're gone, thank them for coming in. It's truly always good during this day to hear their ideas and proposals. And with that, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous material. Hearing no objection, so ordered, the hearing is now adjourned.